Christmas. What a blessed time of the year. A time for gifts and giving. And there has never been a greater gift given by anyone than the one that God gave to the world on the first Christmas, that of His only begotten Son. And who do you think He sent His angels to tell of the arrival of this wonderful gift? You might expect it was a king or some other important person, but no. It was some humble shepherds out in the fields keeping watch over their flocks of sheep. An angel had appeared to them to tell them of the birth of the Messiah and where He could be found. And with the sounds of the heavenly choir still echoing in their ears and hearts, they set off to find Him. They hurried to Bethlehem, and after looking all over, they finally found the stable, and Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a manger, just as they had been told. As they carefully and quietly neared the manger. So they went on their way, rejoicing and praising God and telling everyone what they had seen. And so they went on their way, rejoicing and praising God and telling everyone what they had seen. And so they went on their way, rejoicing and praising God and telling everyone.
And that's how it all began. Not a very promising start, to be sure. But then, most miraculous situations often begin as what you would call disastrous. What we just saw happened nearly 2 weeks ago, during the rehearsals for the Christmas play. Now the performance date is upon them, and they seem no closer to making it happen now than then. It's especially busy this particular holiday season here at the Refuge in the Rock, a shelter for people that are temporarily displaced by various kinds of hardships. Some might call it a homeless shelter, but the people that work or volunteer here call it a ministry. It's the evening of the play now, and everyone is arriving to prepare for the presentation of the play, ready or not. There's a lot of activity that goes on behind the scenes in any kind of production like this, something we seldom see. But this time, I'm going to be pulling back the curtains, as it were, to give you a glimpse of the unseen work and the unsung workers that labor to bless others. The lady obviously in charge is Charlotte Vickers, who holds the position, among others, of the Director of Activities. She's been at the shelter for many years, but this is the fullest she's ever seen it. She knows that being without a home is bad anytime, but infinitely worse on Christmas. So she's determined to present, with the Lord's help, an unforgettable Christmas play for the families that have come to them for shelter, food, and comfort. The older gentleman dancing with his partner, the broom, is Owen, the shelter's janitor and handyman. He always has a song in his heart and kind words on his lips for all. If Charlotte is the head of the shelter, then Owen is its heart, ready to lend a hand and a shoulder to the guests, who often just want someone to listen to them. Owen is a wise man, and anyone talking to him will come away feeling encouraged. He's a man after my own heart, and the Lord's. Wondering why the Christmas tree for the stage wasn't up yet, Charlotte asked Owen what the delay might be. Reluctantly, Owen related to Charlotte that he'd run into a slight hitch, as he termed it. "Sorry to have to tell you this, Miss Charlotte," he said, "but some varmint done got in and stole the Christmas tree and decorations." Typically, he tried to downplay the crime, saying that someone must have been really desperate to steal a tree, but everyone's hit hard this year. I had been waiting and watching from the wings long enough. It was time to get involved. Moving over to introduce myself to the shelter's director, I told her my name was Nate and that I had been sent by headquarters to lend a hand. Her face changed from wondering to relieved, all too happy to accept any kind of help. She loosened up and told me that I was a gift from heaven since they were short-handed this year, with not enough staff or budget to deal with the needs of the many people coming in for help. Walking together to the edge of the stage area, she told me of the hardship that many were experiencing due to the economy and loss of homes and jobs. I asked her what they needed, and her reply was, "A miracle," as she half laughed. She wondered what I could do, and I said, anything they needed. So she pointed me in the direction of some of the volunteers putting up the stage set, and off I went. Now, it's unfortunately an accurate axiom that it never rains, but it pours. And another ugly thundercloud was looming on Charlotte's horizon, this time bringing a storm in the form of the Diva, as she was known behind her back. Her name was Brianna McIntyre, a budding young Hollywood TV star here to serve her sentence of public service for repeated DUIs. She was also known as a drama queen, and she was certainly living down to her reputation now. It was made known to everyone, quite loudly, that the problem area was the Diva's dressing room, which was supposed to be private. It seems she had come in to do her makeup when she found it occupied by several other cast members getting ready, and this was completely unacceptable for a star of her caliber. She demanded a private dressing room immediately. Charlotte refused to cater to her and made it clear that there was no more room and she'd have to make do. Her final words were a reminder that a quick call to her probation officer could get her taken to jail if Charlotte reported that she was being uncooperative. Well, this warning seemed to snap her back to reality, and she backed off for the time being. Having a so-called star around was disruptive in more ways than one. The press were getting wind of her presence now and starting to show up at the worst times. As she preened and vogued for the camera, I noticed a small fan who had made her way into the room to get a closer look at her favorite TV show star. Her name was Sophie Connors, and the experience of losing her home and having to live among strangers had caused her to retreat into a space of her own that she only allowed her father, Franklin, into. Her desire to meet McIntyre was unusual for her, and one that Franklin was anxious to grant her. This represented an important step for her, as she usually only communicated with her father and would talk with no one unless through him. Perhaps this would help her come out of her shell, getting a small kindness from a stranger she felt she knew through TV. Our oblivious Miss McIntyre was telling the reporter how she was volunteering her time and talent to help the less fortunate by acting in their holiday production. I have to admit I was holding my breath as Sophie whispered her wish into her father's ear, and then he related her request to the actress. It would take such a small thing to make this underprivileged girl happy. Had McIntyre learned anything about concern for others, or was it all just PR? No such luck. I could only watch helplessly, like everyone else, as a tragedy played out in intimate terms before us. Addressing Lenny, the Diva reminded him and everyone within earshot that she never signed autographs. Furthermore, would the director please inform her staff to keep away such bothersome people so that she can concentrate on her starring role as the Mother of God? Well, this was the proverbial straw. And as Franklin hurried his crushed daughter away from the scene, Charlotte's simmering anger burst into a righteous flame that shot out through her flashing eyes. Even Lenny was shaken as she parked herself in their path of retreat, and he moved aside to let his boss lady deal with what was coming her way. It's one thing, Charlotte fumed, to step on everyone else's feelings and to show no consideration for the staff, but to rudely insult a child who has emotional problems, who only wanted some small personal memento? A diva like herself deserved no special treatment. She deserved no fans, and she certainly did not deserve the honor of playing one of the most humble and submitted women in the Bible. For once, the pampered diva was speechless as the truth hit home. Taking the robe from the chastised TV idol, Charlotte pronounced the verdict: guilty of gross negligence toward her fellow human beings. The punishment? Exile from the stage and hard labor in the kitchen, cooking and washing the dishes for the duration of her time spent here. As looks of shared satisfaction spread among the gathered staff, the speechlessness wore off, and the starlet began spewing a stream of insults and unseemly language that made the adults cover the younger ears around them. Amid the blue language, it was made clear that she'd rather serve jail time than stoop to waiting on the bums and lowlife that were in the shelter. Embarrassed for her, Lenny carried her out of the room to protect her from more public humiliation and from further damaging her image and career. Charlotte concentrated on settling down, just noticing the crowd staring at her. Owen told the stress director that his heart had been done good by her taking down Miss Diva several notches, but he wondered if some might think it was a mistake, since her name in the paper could bring in more people and result in extra publicity for the shelter. Charlotte agreed that might have been the case, but the Lord doesn't need famous people, just submitted ones. Owen heartily agreed to that, and asked her who was going to play Mary now. She held up the robe and replied that she would have to do it herself. And Joseph, he wondered? She looked up at him and thanked him for volunteering. Nodding, he said he had some good news, if she wanted some. With an expression that plainly said, "That's a silly question," Charlotte coaxed him to spill it. Reminding her of the missing tree problem, he said that they were interrupted before, and he didn't get to tell her that he had a plan in the works. Unknown to her, he had sent out some of the teens staying at the shelter with their families to buy a tree with some money that an anonymous donor had slipped in his pocket earlier. When what to her wondering eyes should appear but a group of young people bringing good cheer. More rapid than eagles, Owen's helpers they came, as he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Justin, now Chloe, now Jordan and Aaron. On Toby, on Hannah, on Lucas and Karen. Get that tree up there, right next to the wall. Now decorate, decorate, decorate all. As tousled locks before the hairdryer fly, when they feel the hot breezes poof up nice and high, so up to the treetop the tinsel they flung, as all the bright lights and baubles were hung.